Ever had a moment that spun sideways where a trip, a conversation, or even a dream day suddenly went wrong? And what if you could actually use those moments to reset, heal, and grow instead of spiraling? If you have ever felt stuck in your emotions like I am describing, then this episode will help you use two very important tools. One is the thought model, and two is Byron Katie's process of how to move forward in difficult circumstances. And if you're ready for a roadmap for your entire whole health journey, not just piecing things together randomly, then I want you to join me inside the Balanced Hormone Solution. Because healing isn't just about hacks, it's about strategy. And today we are talking about mental and emotional strategy. Welcome to the Balanced Hormone Solution podcast. If you're a woman, 35 plus, feeling exhausted, struggling to lose weight, and wondering where your libido went, this is for you. I am Tracy Aaron, a functional medicine practitioner who helps women balance their hormones naturally without prescriptions, guesswork, or trendy nonsense. Because here's the truth. Your symptoms aren't random. They're signals. And if you know how to listen, you can fix the root cause and start feeling like yourself again. If you're ready for real solutions, let's get to it. So welcome back to the Balanced Hormone Solution podcast. I am your host, Tracy Aaron, a registered nurse and integrative health practitioner. And today I want to get real with you about a recent circumstance. In fact, it's so recent, it was less than 12 hours ago, and what happens when life doesn't go the way that you planned. Because let's face it can't possibly just be me. And sometimes it's not your hormones that knock you off track. It's your thoughts about what's happening around you. So let me get vulnerable and let me start at the beginning. I just got back from 5 full days in New York City with my daughter for her 13th birthday. I had planned this trip. Actually, the idea came into my mind over a year and a half ago, let's say, of taking her to New York City. She's homeschooled, but she does go to a twice a week half-day tutorial. And for one of her class projects, she had to choose a state and do an entire project around interesting things about it. Well, she happened to choose New York and focused on the 5 boroughs in New York City. Her and I developed this whole project idea where we would make bagels together. She would bring them into the classroom and she would learn all about the 5 different what's in the boroughs and what makes them notable, famous, historical, etc. And she really enjoyed this project, drew this beautiful map of the 5 boroughs. And in the end, we baked bagels together and she took them to her class and she shared a little piece of love that she began to develop in her heart about New York City with her class. And as her mother who wants to help her grow up with more of a possibility mindset, what I mean by that is anything is possible, not to be limited by we don't have enough time, money, space, resources, energy, etc. We can't do that. That is not the mindset that I approach mothering with. Hardly anything in my life, actually, but especially mothering, because I want my children to go out into the world and face it with a type of open-ended, anything is possible for me, let's go get 'em attitude. And so when she did this project, I had whispered to her, wouldn't it be fun if you and I could visit New York City one day in person, see these 5 boroughs, and actually taste a real bagel? To which she squealed and thought that sounded like a great idea. Well, as that summer went on, she finished that school year, the summer went on, and life just wasn't stacking up to facilitate a big trip to New York City for the 2 of us. And I thought, I had long told my children years prior that when you turn 13, I will plan a trip with just you, and it'll be just mother-child time. and you get to choose the destination within reason, and we will have a go at some really fun adventures together. Well, since it wasn't going to work out for her 12-year-old birthday, I thought, you know what? Well, I already had said this whole plan for the 13-year-old birthday, so that makes sense. Let's put it on the back burner and really make this happen a year from now. And truth be told, I'm not a huge planner. I love to think about the next trip, but I don't work out everything down to the details. So it truly went on the back burner in my mind as something to feed me excitement, but not anything that I was putting a whole lot of thought or energy towards, right? I knew it was coming in the future, but it's not like I started to make hotel reservations or anything. And certainly I didn't need to. But this year, this summer came around and I knew it's time to start booking this trip. I got our plane tickets first, and then I booked our hotel in a central location where we would be near the subway. We'd have fun navigating all of that. And then I had a roundabout idea of where we might go for bagels and pizza and, of course, all the things we might want to see, like the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island. And I had read about people walking across the Brooklyn Bridge at sunrise and taking the train down to Coney Island and eating an original hot dog on the boardwalk. And I just had place markers, if you will, of what could make an amazing 5-day trip. But I didn't have anything, on this day we'll wake up and do this, because honestly, that type of planning is overwhelming to me, and I wouldn't want to be on a trip that was planned to the T like that. So that's just not how I was going into it, but that's not the point of this conversation. A couple weeks prior to the trip, I began to build excitement around what we would be doing. I secured Broadway tickets for the show that she chose, which was Wicked. I thought that was going to be so much fun. And again, I started looking for restaurants and what time of day do you have to get the subway to reach the Brooklyn Bridge before sunrise so you can get those pictures. And I started to put a little bit of effort and energy towards it and try to build the anticipation for us both around what this trip could look like. I started talking to her about all the shopping of Madison Avenue and the Billionaires Row and how we might see Ferraris driving down the street and Plaza Hotel where Home Alone was filmed and the Louis Vuitton store, which is 4 to 5 stories tall, and of course the historical Bergdorf Goodman right across the street, how it's been there since the early 1900s and the only one like it in the world, and how they have this cafe perched over Central Park, and would love to have tea time with her. And I just thought it would be fun to walk down Madison Avenue and see the extravagance of designer clothes, and maybe I could have her try something on and feel, extra elegant for a moment, and then wind our way down to Ralph's Coffee and split a delicious chocolate chip cookie and just see what we could discover. And of course, popping in and out to Central Park, which is right there anyway. And so I started to build this anticipation in both of us and got really excited for this trip and planned the whole day around September 11th, which she was not alive for the actual historical event, but I really felt it important to take her to the memorials. I wanted to walk through the museum space with her just so that she could see that up close and personal, and the rest of the trip would unfold. Well, as it worked out, we had to wake up at nearly 3 a.m. to leave our house at 4 a.m, to board our plane at 5:30 a.m, and for a 6:10 departure time, which meant we landed in New York City shortly after what would have been our 9 a.m. time. Eastern time was 8 o'clock, and we had the entire day ahead of us. And we had a beautiful day wandering through the streets. We walked through Times Square. We saw the hustle and bustle of the billboards and the digital lights. And she also encountered some things that really took her aback. The amount of cigarette and marijuana smoke just everywhere in the streets overwhelmed her. Walking out of a store back onto busy Times Square and being hit with the wafts of marijuana smoke was quite alarming to her, and the homelessness. And we took subways everywhere and seeing people with signs and begging, and just the sheer amount of people who are on their way to something. Everybody felt important, looked important, had an air of importance about them. People were living their normal lives. But I will say, coming from the South, we're in the Nashville area, we didn't encounter a lot of eye contact and smiles. And she is such a lovely, warm butterfly of a person, very super social. I think all of the attitude, just the general energy around the city started to make her pause and take her back a little bit. And I started to watch this shift within her. But she's my daughter, and I'm going to have her pick herself up by her bootstraps and continue marching forward. And march forward we did. We absolutely loved being emotionally moved by the live flowers and the display of sorrow and affection at the 9/11 memorial. Sadly, we weren't able to go into the museum because it was closed on that day for family only, which I understand. I didn't realize that that was going to be happening. Nonetheless, we had a beautiful dinner that night in the city. We got into a place that was reservations only, but the nice hostess at the counter thought that it was so lovely that there was a mother-daughter trip happening for her 13th birthday, and she got us a beautiful seat, and we enjoyed a leisurely, wonderful Italian dinner in the city and walked our way home and had a great time. Next morning, plans were to wake up and have brunch at one of my favorite places on Central Park called Sarah Beth's. And then we would wind our way through some of the bigger name stores right there. The Plaza Hotel, wanted to walk her through the first floor at Bergdorf Goodman, the Louis Vuitton, there's a Gucci store right there, a Celine, all of these fun, extravagant stores that I kind of was intentionally trying to enrich and blow her mind just ever so slightly. Not because I want her to be enamored with materialism, but simply I wanted her to see what a portion of our society really does live like. And I mean, imagine a cashmere sweater that's $2,800 or a handbag that's $60,000, That is not the way that my family can or chooses to live, but I did want her to dip her toes in all of that. And after we walked around some of those stores, I could really feel her energy start to plummet. And she started to close in. And I tried to reach out to her. How about we go into this store, which she saw this Abercrombie and Fitch store, which we have here in Nashville. Let's pop ourselves into there and see if we can, see anything that you can only get here in New York City, a sweatshirt or a hoodie, something a little bit more grounded for her 12-year-old self, right? And she started to come alive a little bit more after that, but I could just tell that things were shifting for her and she was no longer as comfortable on this trip. Now, my plan for this day, my rough and loose plan, was that we would walk our way north up through Central Park, up all the way to the Met Museum. We'd cross over 2 blocks to Madison Avenue, and then we would walk back down Madison Avenue, doing those things that I had mentioned before, and finding our way back onto the subway, and possibly a light dinner at Bergdorf Goodman, and then back to our hotel to ready ourselves for Broadway. Well, none of that went according to plan. And I started to get personally offended by the way that she was shutting down. And I tried to reach inside of her and pull out, why are you feeling this way? I know it's different than home. I know this can be overwhelming. Just trust me on this plan and come with me. No, you don't have to like it per se, like it's your very favorite experience in the world, but I want you to come with me on this. I want to show you and have you experience different parts of this city. And listen, Fifth Avenue, Park Avenue, Madison Avenue, all of that up there by the Met is so different than Times Square. I really wanted her to just take in the experience of both. And we were only on day 2. I thought I foresaw 4 more days ahead of us that would be each and in itself different standalone experiences. Well, that's not how this went. And I felt myself personally taking offense that she was overwhelmed. And our disconnection began to grow here. And I started to feel a little bit upset. Like, I understand this is different for you, but can't you just go through this experience, because it's something that I want to see and it's something that I want you to experience. And anyway, fast forward through this trial of as we're walking north through Central Park, and she's just saying, I don't want to just walk in and out of these stores. I personally began to feel rejected. And the rejection started to get not just that she didn't want to do my plan or my idea, but that she didn't want to be there with me doing the plan that I had made. And all of a sudden, my brain started to spiral. And I went into this place of thinking, listen, girl, like, I have curated some of the best experiences for you. I want you to experience a little bit of everything here, but today it's all about this. And it's as if I'm bringing you to a Michelin star restaurant and you're in sweatpants and simply wanting the mac and cheese off the kids' menu. And I took it personally. Now listen, I'm home now. I grew through this experience, but I can even look back logically and see how ridiculous it was being. But I'm really trying to express to you what our brain does to keep us safe and protected in moments of disappointment and in moments of anxiety. Because what I had thought would be 5 beautiful days of memories and connection was kickstarted off with feelings of grandiose disconnection and discontentment for both of us. And we ended up cutting that entire day early, taking the subway back, going to our hotel to quote unquote regroup and rest. And I even said out loud, I don't know anybody who comes to New York City. I don't know anybody who's young and vibrant like us. And we're in the middle of the day in our hotel to rest. It felt like a personal offense to me. Like, I literally thought, and I'm embarrassed to say, rest is for sissies. What are we doing? We should be out there experiencing this to the fullest. And yet I was missing. This is obvious, especially to you as the listener. You can probably see how ridiculous I was being, but I was missing the entire point, which was this connection between us. And I remained offended for an entire 2 days later. Now, my point is not to admit how ridiculous I was being, although I'm happy to do that. It's a total failure on my part. And I truly feel ashamed over how I went towards self-protection instead of connection. But I want to show you how I made it out. And what I'm proud of myself about is that we didn't stay there, or I didn't stay in this place even longer than the 2 days that I did. Now, I wished I could have spent 10 minutes there instead of multiple days, but I'm growing, and I'm just like you. I'm using tools in my toolbox, and with practice at time, I will get better and better at it so that I can use them sooner and get to my end goal sooner rather than staying in my little wallowing pit, which I did for far too long. So it made that Broadway play that night miserable between us. She ended up loving it. It was a beautiful experience for her. I was sitting there going, I can't believe we're in New York City and we spent hours in our hotel resting. I just was seething with ultimate disappointment. And then the next day, we did take the train down to Coney Island, and I bought her a arm wristband so she could ride the rides. We ate the hot dog. Nothing was bad, but my mindset kept me in the trenches of disappointment. And I had to literally pull myself out myself with these 2 tools that I want to go over with you today, because if I didn't have these tools disposable or at my disposal, I know for sure I would have stayed there the entire trip, and we would have come home and I would have literally thought the trip was a disaster. Now, of course, it's not a disaster. I know what you're thinking. You're listening to this going, come on, you're being way too dramatic. But this is exactly what happens inside our brains when we have high hopes and high expectations for a way or direction that things should take or a way that things should go, and they don't go that way. How do we get ourselves out of that situation? Well, I had forgotten momentarily that I had these two tools available to me. And so one of them is the thought model. The thought model was invented, and is utilized by many people. And it just goes like this. It goes like, I'm going to teach you a very brief overview of how to use this tool. We look at things like they're just a neutral circumstance, okay? That circumstance, we build a thought around that circumstance, okay? Now, the thought is not necessarily what we choose, but what we make that thought mean is what we choose. That thought's meaning creates a feeling, and that feeling that we feel propels us forward into an action, which ultimately creates the result around us. Okay, so let me flesh this out for how this worked for me. So the circumstance simply was neutral circumstance. It was a fact. Nobody can deny it. We were in New York. That is true. That is 100% true. What was also true and also a circumstance from my perspective, I'm not teaching you this from her perspective using the thought model, although we could have done that too. But from my perspective and what I was experiencing, the neutral circumstance is that we were in New York and she was overwhelmed. And she was not excited about the plan that I had for that day. Okay? So we create a thought. I created thoughts around that circumstance. And I took that personally, right? And my thoughts looked a little bit like, well, she doesn't want to be here with me. She doesn't like my plan. She's not appreciating me, the things I like, and the experience that I want her to have. Therefore, she's rejecting me. Okay, if you put those thoughts on, if anybody puts those thoughts on, what are they going to feel? Exactly the way that I felt. Hurt, defensive even, frustrated. I kept thinking, you're simply not ready for this. I should have waited until you were 16, right? What kind of action do those feelings create? It pulled me towards arguing with her. Well, why don't you want to do this? Why don't you appreciate this part of New York City? Can't you just look in from the outside, and even though it's different from you and us, can't you just dip your toes in just ever so briefly? And that action, it pulled us away completely emotionally. So what result did I get? Well, a lot more distance between us, a lot less joy on this trip, and the confirmation bias, my brain just went into a loop. This trip is ruined. This trip is not the trip I wanted to have. I didn't want it to be super touristy and superficial. I wanted to give her meaning, the core memories that she would have for the rest of her life, right? And instead, the result that I was getting was this ultimate disconnection and this loop that this entire thing was off and therefore it was wrong. So I had to make the conscious choice, and this is what I'm talking about. I had to recognize that there was a tool in my toolbox that I was not utilizing. And when you're in the middle of it, sometimes you can look even at a solution and not want it. And I was challenged by that. What is this disconnection giving me? I'm getting what I don't want, and yet I'm choosing it over and over and over again, because this is what the human brain does. The human brain keeps us living small. It keeps us safe, quote unquote, and protected. Because here's the truth. Somewhere along in my own childhood, let's go back to 5 or 6 or even earlier years old, where I learned that people weren't in my life to connect with me. People weren't here to give me what I needed. Therefore, I had to give it to myself. So I learned at a very early age that I needed to keep myself safe, I needed to survive, and I needed to protect myself. And what that actually looks like in human relationships is to not be vulnerable, is to wall myself off, is to live in my own thoughts in my own world. Thankfully, this tool has come into my life though. And it sadly admit, it took me 2 days to get there, but I did get there. And I stopped myself and I said, Tracy, you're being ridiculous. But you know what? I'm not mad at you. I understand why you're protecting yourself. And I really had to talk to myself like I was a 6-year-old. And I had to say, you don't need to protect yourself from your daughter. You have a beautiful relationship with her. And she wants connection with you too. You actually want the same thing. So pause and think a different thought. The circumstance is not going to change, but the thought is what can change. So I had to take a big step away from that moment of safety and step into this world where I had to do what I knew I needed to do, even though I didn't feel like I wanted to do it. And that new thought was, she's not even 13. She'll be 13 tomorrow. This is a lot. It's bigger than any life experience I've ever been able to provide for her up until this time. She's simply overwhelmed. And when I put that thought on, my feeling that I created from that thought turned to compassion. And when I had compassion for her, my actions started to soften. And the result, as you can imagine, was a much more connected last couple days of this beautiful trip that we both will never forget. All I needed to do was to stop protecting myself, which I had told myself, if I continue to do this, I will get the result I'm looking for. You have to protect yourself, stay in survival mode. But it's almost like I just had to utilize the tool. I had to pick it up and I had to put the hammer to the nail. That was a choice, a conscious choice. Now, another tool that I really want to demonstrate is equally as powerful as the thought model. It's something called the work by Byron Katie. She has 4 questions in this work, and it's called the work because it is not easy. And sometimes this mental, emotional stuff is the harder piece to our healing process. You know what? I can help you detoxify your body. I can teach you how to eat right. I can get you moving every single day. I can rewrite your lifestyle and habits. But this stuff, you have to step into this yourself, which surely makes this the work. So her 4 questions would look like this in my circumstance. You ask yourself, is it true? Is it true that she was rejecting me? She might have rejected my plan, but was she truly rejecting me? And then the second, and of course the answer would be no, she's not. Then the second question would be, can I absolutely know that it's true? Because, for example, if I had say yes, it's true, she's rejecting me because this is the trip that I had planned for, and this is the day that I wanted to give her these experiences. And she is rejecting this, therefore she's rejecting me. Yes, it is true. The second question will get you, though. It is, can I absolutely know that it's true? And of course, no, I cannot absolutely know that it's true. I cannot absolutely know that it's true that she is rejecting me. I'll take it a step further. Even if she had gone to the point of saying, I reject you, not just your plan, but you. I don't want to be here with you. Could I absolutely know even then that she was rejecting me? No. Because, for one, she's 12, almost 13. What if she was just not sure how to place these new feelings and experiences, didn't have the right words to put to them, didn't, like a puppy, in a lot of energy in a little tiny body, and they bounce all over and they run into walls and they slide on wood floors. Is that their fault, quote unquote? Or is that just their expression of trying to be comfortable in this world? Was she simply protecting herself, right? So the answer is no. I cannot absolutely know that it's true. And then the third question is, how do I react when I believe that thought? Okay, so I'd ask myself, how am I reacting when I believe the thought that she's rejecting me? Well, you already know how I acted. It was foolish, it was immature, and it was selfish. Okay, and then the fourth question is, who would I be without that thought? I literally had to take my 2 days of sorry, sullen, moody self-pity, take it off as if it were a hat or a jacket and set it aside and say, who am I here in New York City with my daughter without that thought that she's rejecting me? This is what gave me the space to see she wasn't rejecting me. She was being human in what was a new and difficult moment. She saw a lot in a very short period of time. And I expected her to hop up, come on, stay on my heels, don't walk too slow, let's get this train. Oh, it's this way, not that way. The busyness, the energy, the high hustle and bustle of that city. I didn't give her space to react, to settle, margin for calm, a lot of reassurance, which she needed from me. And without that thought, I became the mother that I wanted to be on that trip. I became the mother hen. Come, little darling, wrap up and fold into my arms. I am here for you. Does this feel like a lot? Let's sit at this quiet cafe. Have we seen too much today? What if we went to a zoo and saw your favorite red panda, which they actually did have in Central Park? That truly was a highlight. Right? You see how that one idea of who would I be without that thought that's keeping you stuck? You can make a choice to physically, energetically, mentally, therefore emotionally, step into who you would be without that thought. And I liked that mom. I liked that woman who held her daughter's hand and pulled her, or no, pulling is the wrong image even, walked side by side with her through a big, expansive, beautiful, and busy city. The mom who said, let's stop and get a lemonade. The mom who said, oh, right over here is the Hudson River. Let's capture that sunset. Let me take a picture of you in this beautiful light. Right? Do you see the difference there? I liked who that woman was without the thought that my daughter is rejecting me. And all I needed to do was to think a different thought, to step into her, and it changed everything. So sometimes there's life applications for, that match up across different playing fields of our lives, right? Like, I am a wife, but I'm also a mother, but I'm also a business owner, but I'm also a friend, but I'm also a daughter, right? All these different things. So in terms of like the healing journey, when you're sick with your hormones and feeling overwhelmed at the littlest thing in life, here's a couple tips that I could give to you from my experience in New York City. Of course, besides the thought model and the work. those two need to be tools in everybody's back pocket because we find that we need to apply them all the time. But number one, these practical tools for the healing journey would be like to have a roadmap, okay? Like random ideas they're not a strategy. They don't work. So whether you're traveling or when you're trying to heal, if you just throw things together without a plan, you could end up frustrated. You actually do need some structure and strategy. And no, find what's comfortable for you. You don't need that. We're going to wake up at this hour. We're going to walk down here. We're going to take this. We're going to turn left. We're going to sleep at it. No. That's not what I'm talking about. That sounds like a basket of anxiety to me. But we do need a general roadmap, especially when we're involving other people. So when I work with my clients, there's always structure and strategy there. I don't want anyone left out on the streets of Times Square or New York City feeling alone or overwhelmed. The next tip is that we need to build in rest, right? Especially when facing something new. So just like she needed downtime in the afternoon in the hotel in the city, your body, while it's healing, needs downtime too. We need margin. We overextend ourselves too much. We say yes when we should be saying we'd like to, but not right now. Sometimes it's a flat out no, but acknowledging that we wish we could help, we just can't right now, that's okay too. And sometimes that's a more gentle blow to our people-pleasing selves that wishes we could do more than we actually can. So build in rest into your lives without overextending yourself. The third thing is just to keep an open mind, right? And we need to remember something called impermanence. That is that emotions and situations, even thoughts, they pass. But what makes them feel heavy in the moment is the meaning we attach to the thought. And when we recognize that those thoughts can shift in an instant, that nothing is permanent, not my daughter's overwhelmed, not your hormone chaos, not my feeling of rejection, all things can be shaped to a way where we come to a more centered place of peace. It doesn't mean that the problem goes away per se, but the way that we think about the problem, the way we view the problem can change everything. So this week, when you find yourself in the midst of a negative moment, here's what I want you to do. I want you to pause. Just pause. And I want you to run through the thought model. The most important thing is to separate that circumstance from the thought, from the feeling. And when we recognize that the thought comes first, we're all chasing a feeling, okay? Let's just admit that. We all want to feel a certain way. And what we don't often recognize is that it's a thought leading us to that feeling. So when we can separate the thought from the feeling, we can deal with the thought on its own. We can manipulate it into a thought that feels better for us. So I want you to write down the circumstance, literally pen and paper. And then I want you to write down the thought that you've created around it. What feeling are you feeling in your body? What actions are you taking because you feel that way? And then therefore, what's the result? And then I want you to flip that thought using Byron Katie's questions. It's a simple but very powerful way to interrupt this spin. And may it not take you 2 days, if an amazing trip to get to the place that you want to be. The more we use this, the better we get. Very practical in terms, practice makes perfect. It truly does. And the point here is that life doesn't have to be perfect to be meaningful. Sometimes those messy moments are invitations to pinpoint our thoughts, to learn how to shift them, to slow down, to reset. And when you learn to do this with your mind, you end up practicing the same discipline that I teach with your health. which ultimately is to stop throwing random things together and start following a roadmap that works no matter how scary it is. Put the tool to practice. And in the end, in case you're dying to know, what started off with excitement and then quickly led to discontent and disconnection ended up with so much connection when I chose to be vulnerable, to step inside her world, to say I'm sorry, to ask for forgiveness, to think about the trip in a new and beautiful way. We ended up far more connected, I believe, having gone through what we went through, than had we just landed in New York City with our roadmap at our disposal, going hither and thither, experiencing the things that I wanted her to experience. So all that's to say is we don't even need to fear these trials and these moments of overwhelm and anxiety. They're there for a reason, and we can learn to use them for our ultimate goal, which generally is feelings of safety and connection. So moral of the story is don't be like me. Don't take the circuitous route. Identify your thought early on. Make it mean something that creates a feeling that you want to feel in your body, which will propel you towards the action you know you need to take, which will create the results that you're longing for. Okay? Whew. Lots to reflect on here. I went to New York City really feeling like I was an amazing mom, to be honest. And I still think I'm not half bad, but man, was it humbling in a way that I recognized how much room I have for growth. And I love that. And I have bigger portions of my daughter's heart now. And she saw a part of me that humanized me in her eyes. So ultimately, it was a win all the way around. And there is my vulnerable story for you of how a dream trip to New York City ended up, what should I say, going south, becoming disastrous? I don't know. On the other side, though, it was better than ever and better than anything I could have ever wanted. So I'm thankful even for those trials. All right, stay tuned for next one. We will continue to talk about the thought model, how to flesh this out in our lives, because sometimes it's not just physical health keeping us sick. All right. See you in the next episode of Balanced Hormone Solution Podcast. That's it for today's episode of the Balanced Hormone Solution Podcast. If this resonated, don't just listen, do something about it. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you know another woman who's tired of feeling like a stranger in her own body, send her this way. For more support, check out the show notes. I've got resources to help you get started. Just remember, your body isn't broken. You just need the right tools. See you next time.